Emma Holloway pressed her dying father's letter against her chest and watched him disappear into the blizzard. She was 8 years old. Her sister Gracie was 5. The snow was already covering their father's boot prints, erasing him from their lives, one flake at a time. "Papa!" Gracie screamed into the white nothing. "Papa, come back!" But he didn't turn around. He couldn't. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Subscribe, settle in, and stay with me until the very end. This is the story of 2 little girls left to freeze and the stranger who refused to ride past. Samuel Holloway had been dying for 3 months. He'd hidden it well, the blood he coughed into his handkerchief, the weight falling off his frame, the fever that came and went like a cruel tide. But hiding it from his daughters was the hardest lie he'd ever told. "Where are we going, Papa?" Emma's voice cut through the howling wind. She was walking beside him, one hand gripping his coat, the other holding tight to Gracie's mittened fingers. The snow was up to their knees now, and still falling. "Somewhere safe. Emma Ruth." His voice came out raw, broken. "Somewhere you'll be found." Found by who? He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. They'd been walking for nearly an hour through the worst blizzard Wyoming had seen in 10 years. Samuel had waited for this storm on purpose. A clear day meant witnesses, questions, people who might try to stop him, or worse, follow him back to see if he was really dying, or just a coward who'd abandoned his children. The storm would cover his tracks. The storm would make it quick. "Papa, I'm cold." Gracie's voice was small, already weakening. "Can we go home now?" "Soon, baby girl, real soon." The old oak tree appeared through the white curtain like a ghost. Samuel had scouted this spot 2 weeks ago, riding out in secret while the girls slept. The tree stood 50 yards from the main road, close enough to be seen by travelers, far enough to offer shelter from the wind. In summer, wagon trains passed here twice daily. In winter, there were fewer travelers, but the road to Copper Hollow was still used. Someone would come. Someone had to come. Here. Samuel stopped beneath the oak's massive branches. The trunk blocked some of the wind, creating a small pocket of relative calm. "We're stopping here." Emma looked around, her dark eyes sharp despite the cold. "There's nothing here, Papa. Just a tree." "I know." "Then why—" "Emma." He knelt down in the snow, and the movement sent pain shooting through his chest. The consumption was eating him alive from the inside. Another week, maybe 2, and he wouldn't be able to walk at all. "I need you to listen to me now. Listen careful." Something in his tone made her go still. Gracie pressed closer to her sister, thumb finding its way to her mouth. "You and Gracie are going to wait here, right here under this tree. Someone's going to come along, someone good, and they're going to take care of you." "What?" Emma's voice pitched high. "Papa, no, we're not staying here. We're coming with you." "You can't come where I'm going, baby." "Why not?" The question hung in the frozen air. Samuel reached into his coat and pulled out the letter he'd written and rewritten a dozen times. His hands shook as he pressed it into Emma's mittened palm. "Because I'm dying, Emma Ruth. I've been dying for months now, and I can't—" His voice cracked. He had to stop, had to breathe, had to find the strength to finish this. "I can't watch you girls starve beside my sickbed. I can't leave you alone in that cabin with nobody knowing you're there. This way someone will find you, someone who can feed you and keep you warm and give you the life I can't give anymore." Emma stared at the letter in her hand, then at her father's face, then at the letter again. "No. Emma. No." She threw the letter into the snow. "I don't want your stupid letter. I want you. We'll take care of you, Papa. I can cook and clean, and I'll make you better. Mama showed me how to make the medicine tea. I remember. I remember all of it." Samuel picked up the letter, brushed off the snow, and pressed it back into her hands. His fingers closed around hers, holding firm. You can't make me better, baby. Nobody can. The sickness in my lungs, it don't have a cure. And every day I get weaker, there's less food on the table. Less wood for the fire. Less of everything. He cupped her face in his hands, memorizing her features. Martha's eyes. Martha's stubborn chin. You're 8 years old, Emma Ruth. You shouldn't have to be a mother already. You shouldn't have to carry this weight. I don't mind carrying it. I don't mind, Papa, please. Gracie started to cry quiet, hiccuping sobs that shook her small body. What's happening, Emma? What's Papa saying? Emma pulled her sister close, wrapping both arms around her. Over Gracie's golden head, she stared at her father with eyes that had gone hard. Old. The eyes of someone who'd seen too much loss already. You're leaving us. Like Mama left. Mama didn't leave. Mama died. And you're dying too, so it's the same thing. Samuel flinched like she'd hit him. Maybe she had. Maybe the truth was the hardest blow of all. It ain't the same, Emma. Your mama didn't have a choice. I do. And I'm choosing to give you a chance. A real chance at living, not just surviving until I stop breathing and you're left alone anyway. What if nobody comes? The question Samuel had asked himself 100 times. What if the storm lasted days? What if the road stayed empty? What if he was wrong and his daughters froze to death under this tree waiting for salvation that never arrived? Someone will come. You don't know that. I know there's no other choice, Emma Ruth. Not anymore. He stood slowly, his joints screaming in protest. The cold had seeped into his bones, and the coughing fit that followed nearly brought him to his knees. Blood spotted the snow at his feet, bright red against the white, and he kicked fresh powder over it before the girls could see. There's food in this sack. He set the canvas bag beside them. Bread, jerky, some dried apples, and a canteen of water, though you'll have to melt snow once it runs out. There's a blanket in there too. You wrap yourselves up tight and you wait. Papa. When someone comes, you give them that letter. It explains everything. It tells them who you are and that you need help. He backed away a step, then another. You hold on to each other, you hear me? You keep each other warm. And you don't give up, no matter how long it takes. Emma was crying now, 2 silent tears freezing on her cheeks. But her voice came out steady, fierce. If you leave us here, I'll never forgive you. Samuel stopped. The wind howled around them, and the snow fell thicker, and somewhere in the distance a wolf began to howl. He looked at his daughters, his babies, his whole world, and felt his heart crack right down the middle. I know, Emma Ruth. His voice was barely a whisper. I'm counting on you to hate me enough to survive. Then he turned and walked into the storm. Emma watched until she couldn't see him anymore. Until the white swallowed him whole, and there was nothing left but the wind and the cold and her sister's sobs. Emma. Gracie's voice was muffled against her coat. Emma, where did Papa go? Is he coming back? Emma looked down at the letter crumpled in her fist, at the snow filling her father's footprints, at the long white road stretching empty in both directions. I don't know, Gracie. I'm scared. Me too. She pulled her sister down into the sheltered space between the oak's massive roots and wrapped the blanket around them both. The food sack she tucked between their bodies for extra warmth. The letter she folded carefully and shoved inside her dress next to her skin where it couldn't blow away. Then she held Gracie close and started counting. 1 minute. 5 minutes. 10. The storm raged on. Nobody came. The first hour was the hardest. Gracie cried until she exhausted herself, then fell into a fitful sleep against Emma's chest. Emma kept her eyes fixed on the road, watching for any movement, any sign of life. There was nothing. Just white on white on white, endless and merciless. She thought about her mother, about the night Mama died, caught in a storm not so different from this one. Papa had searched for 3 days before he found her frozen beneath a cottonwood tree, one hand still reaching toward home. Was this their fate too? To freeze under a tree waiting for someone who never came? No. Emma said it out loud, needing to hear the word. Someone's coming. Someone has to come. But the road stayed empty. The second hour brought a new fear. Gracie's forehead pressed against Emma's neck was burning hot. Fever. Whether from the cold or from sickness or from pure fear, Emma didn't know. She just knew it was bad. Gracie, wake up. You need to drink some water. Her sister's eyes fluttered open, glassy and unfocused. Mama. It's Emma. I'm right here. Where's Mama? I want Mama. Emma's throat closed. Mama's in heaven, Gracie. Remember, she's watching over us. Is Papa in heaven too? The question hit like a punch. Emma didn't know how to answer. Didn't know if she wanted Papa to be dead or alive. If he was dead, at least he wasn't suffering anymore. If he was alive, then he was out there somewhere having left them behind. I don't know, Gracie. I don't know. She managed to get some water into her sister, then some bread broken into small pieces. Gracie ate mechanically, her eyes already closing again. Within minutes, she was asleep. Emma held her and waited. The light began to fade. The storm impossibly grew worse. The wind shrieked through the branches overhead, and the snow piled higher around their small shelter. Emma could feel the cold seeping through the blanket, through her coat, through her skin. We're going to die here, she thought. Papa was wrong. Nobody's coming. But she didn't say it out loud. Didn't let herself believe it, not completely. Because if she believed it, she would stop fighting. And Emma Ruth Holloway wasn't ready to stop fighting. Not yet. Please, she whispered into the wind. To God. To her mother. To anyone who might be listening. Please send someone. Anyone. Please don't let us die like this. The wind answered with a howl. And then impossibly incredibly, she heard hoofbeats. So, Cal Brennan was going to die in this storm, and he knew it. He'd been riding for 2 hours, through the worst blizzard he'd seen in all his years in Wyoming. His horse, a sturdy bay named Whiskey, was struggling through drifts up to his chest. The wind cut through Cal's coat like a knife, and he'd lost feeling in his fingers about an hour back. Stupid. This whole thing was stupid. He should have stayed in Copper Hollow, waited out the storm, like any sensible man. But the job in Montana wouldn't wait, and Cal needed that job. Needed the money. Needed to get out of this territory before the ghosts of his past caught up with him. So here he was, freezing to death on a road to nowhere, because he was too stubborn and too proud to admit when he was beat. Come on, Whiskey. His voice came out hoarse, barely audible over the wind. Just a little further. There's got to be shelter somewhere. The horse plowed on, trusting his rider, even when his rider didn't deserve it. Cal hunched lower in the saddle, trying to conserve what little warmth he had left. That's when he saw it. A shape beneath a tree. Dark against the white. At first he thought it was a deer, maybe a dead cow. But then the shape moved, and Cal's heart stuttered in his chest. Whoa! He pulled Whiskey to a halt, squinting through the snow. What in the... The shape moved again, and this time Cal heard a voice. Small. Thin. Desperate. Help! Please help us! Cal swung down from the saddle before he'd even made a conscious decision. His legs nearly buckled. He'd been riding so long they'd gone numb, but he forced them to carry him toward the tree. Toward the shape that was now resolving into something impossible. 2 children. 2 little girls huddled together under a threadbare blanket, one of them waving frantically, while the other lay still against her chest. Jesus Christ! Cal dropped to his knees beside them. What are you? How did you? Who left you out here? The older girl, dark hair, dark eyes, face pale as the snow around her, thrust a crumpled piece of paper toward him. Her hand was shaking so badly she could barely hold it. Papa, she said. Her voice cracked. Papa left us. He said someone would come. He said someone would find us. Cal took the paper, but he didn't read it. Not yet. His eyes were fixed on the smaller girl who hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, hadn't done anything except lie there with her eyes closed. "She's sick," the older girl said. "She has a fever. I tried to keep her warm, but I couldn't. Hey." Cal reached out and gripped her shoulder, steadying her before she could fall apart completely. "Hey, look at me. What's your name?" "Emma. Emma Holloway. And she's Gracie. She's only 5. Please, you have to help her, please. I'm going to help both of you." He said it firmly, like a promise, like a vow. "But I need you to stay calm. Can you do that, Emma? Can you stay calm for your sister?" Emma nodded, her jaw tight. Cal could see her fighting to hold herself together, fighting to be strong. She'd probably been fighting her whole damn life. He recognized the look. He'd worn it himself once upon a time. "Good girl." He turned his attention to Gracie, pressing his hand against her forehead. Burning hot, just like Emma said. The child's breathing was shallow, rapid. Not good. Not good at all. "How long have you been out here?" "I don't know. Hours. Since this morning." "Since this morning." Cal's blood ran cold. That was 8, maybe 10 hours in this storm. How they'd survived this long was nothing short of a miracle. "Papa said someone would come," Emma repeated, like she was trying to convince herself. "He said to wait, and someone would come." Cal finally looked at the letter in his hand. He unfolded it carefully, holding it close so the wind wouldn't tear it away, and read by what little light remained. "To whoever finds these children. Their names are Emma and Grace Holloway. Their mother is dead. Their father is dying. I have consumption and cannot provide for them any longer. I have no money, no family, no options left. I am leaving them here because I believe someone good will stop. I am trusting in the mercy of strangers because I have nothing else to trust in. Please help them. Please don't leave them here to die. If you cannot help them, take them to the Territorial Orphanage in Omaha. Do not leave them alone. Their father, Samuel Holloway." Cal read it twice. Then he folded it carefully and tucked it inside his coat. "Your papa," he said slowly. "He walked away in this storm." Emma nodded. "Which direction?" She pointed east, into the worst of the wind where visibility dropped to nothing, and a man could walk 10 feet and disappear forever. Cal understood then what Samuel Holloway had done. He'd walked into that storm knowing he wouldn't walk out. He'd left his daughters where they might be found, and then gone off to die alone where they wouldn't have to watch. It was the most terrible act of love Cal had ever witnessed. All right. He stood, his mind already racing through options. "We need to move. There's a town about 8 miles west, Copper Hollow. I passed through yesterday. They'll have a doctor, a warm place to stay." 8 miles? Emma's voice cracked. "Gracie can't walk 8 miles. I don't think I can either." "You won't have to walk." Cal moved to Whiskey and began adjusting the saddle-making room. "You'll ride, both of you with me. Your horse can't carry 3 people in this snow. Whiskey can carry anything I ask him to." Cal paused, looking back at her. This girl, 8 years old, freezing and terrified, and still thinking practically. Still trying to solve problems. "You let me worry about the horse, Emma. You just worry about holding on to your sister." He came back and knelt beside them. Carefully, gently, he lifted Gracie into his arms. The child weighed almost nothing, skin and bones beneath her thin dress, burning with fever, yet shivering violently. She whimpered, but didn't wake. "Emma, can you stand?" She tried. Her legs buckled. Cal caught her with his free arm, holding both girls against him. "I've got you," he said. "I've got you both. Now come on. Let's get the hell out of this storm." The ride to Copper Hollow was the longest 8 miles of Cal's life. He rode with Gracie cradled against his chest, and Emma pressed against his back, her arms wrapped around his waist. The storm still raged, but Whiskey knew the way home now, and the big bay pushed forward with renewed determination. Cal kept talking. He didn't know if the girls could hear him over the wind, but he talked anyway. About whiskey, about the town they were heading toward, about the hot food and warm beds waiting for them. "You're going to be all right," he said over and over. "You're going to be just fine." Emma didn't respond, but her grip around his waist tightened, and Cal took that as a sign. Halfway there, Gracie started mumbling. Fever talk, mostly calling for her mama, asking when they were going home, asking why it was so cold. Cal held her tighter and urged whiskey faster. "Hang on, little one. Just hang on." The lights of Copper Hollow appeared through the snow like tiny stars fallen to earth. Cal felt something loosen in his chest. They were going to make it. Against all odds, they were going to make it. He rode straight to the doctor's house, a small white building at the end of Main Street, and pounded on the door until a bleary-eyed man in a nightshirt opened it. "What in the name of—" "I've got 2 children here, half frozen, and one with a fever that won't quit." Cal was already pushing past him, Gracie still in his arms. "You're going to save them, Doc. You're going to save them both." The doctor took one look at Gracie's flushed face and Emma's blue lips and snapped into action. "Get them inside, both of them. Now." Cal carried the girls into the warmth and the light, and for the first time since he'd found them beneath that tree, he let himself breathe. They were alive. They were going to stay that way. He'd make damn sure of it. Hours later, Cal sat in the doctor's front room and stared at the letter in his hands. Please help them. Please don't leave them here to die. He'd come to Wyoming looking for a fresh start, a new life, a way to outrun the demons that had chased him since childhood. He hadn't planned on finding 2 orphaned girls in a blizzard. Hadn't planned on becoming responsible for anyone but himself. Hadn't planned on any of this. But life, Cal had learned, didn't care much about plans. In the other room, he could hear the doctor talking to Emma in a low, gentle voice. Hear Gracie coughing, then quieting. Hear the crackle of the fire and the settling of the old house against the wind. He looked at the letter one more time. I am trusting in the mercy of strangers. Well, Mr. Holloway, Cal whispered to the man who'd walked into the storm and never come back. I don't know about mercy, but I reckon I can give them a chance. He folded the letter and tucked it into his pocket. Then he stood up and walked toward the light. The doctor's name was Henry Marsh, and he worked through the night without rest. Cal watched from the doorway as the old man moved between the 2 girls checking pulses, feeling foreheads spooning medicine into Gracie's mouth. Emma sat rigid on a chair beside her sister's bed, refusing to sleep, refusing to eat, refusing to let go of Gracie's hand. She's going to make it, Dr. Marsh said finally, straightening up with a groan. The fever's high, but she's young, strong. Give her a few days of rest and proper food, she'll pull through. Cal let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. And Emma? Cold and exhausted, but no frostbite. She'll be fine once she warms up and gets some sleep. The doctor turned to look at Cal, his eyes sharp despite the late hour. The question is what happens to them now. What do you mean? I mean, Mr. Brennan, that I can't keep 2 orphaned children in my examination room indefinitely. They need somewhere to stay, someone to look after them. Dr. Marsh pulled off his spectacles and rubbed his eyes. You said their father walked into that storm deliberately. Yes, sir. Left a letter explaining everything. Then he's dead by now. No man survives a night like this without shelter. The doctor shook his head slowly. Which means these girls are alone in the world, unless you know of family somewhere. Cal thought of the letter. No money, no family, no options left. No family. Then it's the Territorial Orphanage in Omaha. I can send word tomorrow, arrange transport once the weather clears. Something twisted in Cal's gut. He'd spent time in places like that orphanage. After his mother died, after his uncle threw him out, he'd drifted through half a dozen institutions that called themselves charitable homes. He remembered the cold dormitories, the thin blankets, the older children who stole food from the younger ones. He remembered the feeling of being nobody, belonging to nobody, mattering to nobody. How long would that take the transport? A week, maybe two, depending on the roads. And where do they stay until then? Dr. Marsh hesitated. That's the problem, isn't it? I don't have room to keep them here. Mrs. O'Brien runs the boarding house on Main Street, but she doesn't take children. And most folks in this town have enough mouths to feed already. Cal looked through the doorway at Emma. She was still holding Gracie's hand, her dark eyes fixed on her sister's face with an intensity that made his chest ache. "I'll figure something out," he heard himself say. Dr. Marsh raised an eyebrow. "You. I found them. I brought them here. I'll make sure they're taken care of until arrangements can be made." "Mr. Brennan, forgive me for asking, but do you have any idea what you're volunteering for?" "These aren't stray dogs you can feed and forget. They're children, traumatized, orphaned children who've just lost everything. I know what they are. Do you have money? A place to stay? Any experience with children at all?" Cal thought about the $40 in his pocket. About the job in Montana that was probably already given to someone else. About the fact that he'd never taken care of anything in his life except his horse and himself. "I'll figure it out," he said again. The doctor studied him for a long moment. Then he sighed and reached for his coat. "Mrs. O'Brien owes me a favor. I'll talk to her in the morning, see if she'll make an exception. But I'm warning you, son, this isn't going to be easy. Nothing about this situation is going to be easy." "I don't expect easy. I just expect to do what's right." Dr. Marsh smiled, then a tired, sad smile that spoke of too many years and too many hard cases. "That's either the noblest thing I've heard all year or the most foolish. I haven't decided which yet." He left Cal alone with the girls and the fire and the weight of a decision he hadn't fully thought through. Emma's voice cut through the silence. "You're going to leave too, aren't you?" Cal turned. She was looking at him now, those dark eyes drilling into his, like she could see straight through to his soul. "What makes you say that?" "Everyone leaves. Mama died. Papa walked away. Now you're going to find us a place to stay and then ride off to wherever you were going." Her voice was flat, matter-of-fact. The voice of someone who'd stopped expecting anything good. "It's fine. I understand. We're not your problem." Cal crossed the room and crouched down beside her chair. Up close he could see how young she really was beneath all that forced maturity. 8 years old and already carrying the weight of the world. "I ain't leaving, Emma." "You don't have to lie to me. I'm not a baby." "I ain't lying." He held her gaze, letting her search his face for whatever proof she needed. "I found you and your sister out there in that storm. That means something. Maybe I don't know what yet, but it means something. It means you were in the right place at the right time. That's all. Maybe. Or maybe it means I was supposed to find you." Emma's jaw tightened. "Papa said someone good would come. He said to trust in strangers." Her voice cracked just slightly. "Look where trusting got us. Your papa did what he thought was right. He was dying, Emma. He didn't have any other choice. He could have stayed. He could have let us take care of him until—" She stopped, swallowing hard. "He could have let us say goodbye." Cal didn't have an answer for that. There was no answer that would make it hurt less. "You're angry at him." "Yes." "That's okay. You're allowed to be angry." "Everyone keeps telling me it's okay to feel things." Emma's voice went sharp. "But nobody tells me what I'm supposed to do with those feelings. Nobody tells me how to make them stop." "They don't stop, not completely, but they get easier to carry with time." "How do you know?" Cal was quiet for a moment. He hadn't talked about his past in years, hadn't wanted to. But this girl with her fierce eyes and her broken heart deserved something more than empty platitudes. "Because I lost my mama too," he said finally. "When I was about your age. And after that, I lost pretty much everything else worth losing." Emma's expression shifted just slightly. "What happened?" "She got sick. Fever took her in 3 days. My daddy had died a few years before, so I got sent to live with my uncle." Cal's jaw tightened at the memory. He wasn't a kind man. I ran off when I was 12. Been on my own ever since. That's sad. It is, but I survived. And you're going to survive too, Emma. You and Gracie both. How can you be sure? Because you're still here. Because you kept your sister alive through a blizzard that should have killed you both. Because you're too damn stubborn to give up, and I can see that just from looking at you. For the first time, something flickered in Emma's eyes that might have been hope, or maybe just the absence of despair, which was close enough. You really aren't going to leave. Not until I know you're safe, both of you. That's a promise. Papa made promises too. I ain't your papa, Emma. I don't make promises I can't keep. She held his gaze for a long moment, measuring him, testing him. Then she nodded once, short and sharp. Okay. Okay. I'll trust you, for now. But if you break your word, you'll never forgive me, I know. Cal straightened up his knees, protesting the movement. Get some sleep, Emma. Your sister's going to need you strong when she wakes up. Emma turned back to Gracie, her hand finding her sister's again. But something in her posture had softened just a fraction. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Cal settled into the chair by the door and watched over them both as the night crept toward dawn. The morning brought chaos. Cal woke to the sound of voices in the front room, loud and agitated. He dozed off sometime before sunrise, slumped in the chair with his hat pulled low over his eyes. Now he jerked awake, hand going automatically to the gun at his hip. Can't just take in strays, Henry. What were you thinking? I wasn't thinking, Margaret. I was treating 2 children who nearly froze to death. That tends to take precedence over social considerations. And now you expect me to house them in my establishment. Cal rose and moved toward the voices. In the front room, Dr. Marsh was facing off with a formidable woman in her late 50s. She was short, solid, with iron-gray hair pulled back so tight it seemed to stretch her face. Her eyes were the color of a winter sky, cold and assessing. Mrs. O'Brien, I presume, Cal said, stepping into the room. Both of them turned. Dr. Marsh looked relieved. Mrs. O'Brien looked like she'd just found something unpleasant on her shoe. And you're the one who brought them in. It wasn't a question. The drifter who thinks he can play savior. I'm Cal Brennan, ma'am, and I ain't playing anything. I just happened to find 2 children dying in a blizzard and figured someone ought to do something about it. Noble of you. Her tone suggested she didn't think it was noble at all. And now you want me to give them a room in my boarding house free of charge out of the goodness of my heart. I can pay. That stopped her. Can you now? Cal pulled out his money and counted it onto the table. $40. Everything he had in the world. $2 a week for the room, meals included. That's what the doc says you charge. This covers 5 weeks. By then I'll have found work and can pay for more. Mrs. O'Brien looked at the money, then at Cal, then back at the money. What kind of work? Any kind. I'm good with horses, better with cattle. I can fix fences, dig wells, clear land. Whatever needs doing, I can do it. In the middle of winter, when every ranch in the territory is cutting hands not hiring them, someone always needs something done. I'll find work. And if you don't, then I'll figure out something else. But those girls aren't going to an orphanage. Not while I'm breathing. Something shifted in Mrs. O'Brien's expression. Not warmth exactly, but something less hostile. You don't even know these children. Why do you care what happens to them? Cal thought about the question, about the answer he couldn't quite put into words. Because someone should, he said finally. Because their father trusted that someone good would come along, and I'm the one who came. That means something. Maybe it means I'm supposed to help them. Supposed to... You believe in fate, Mr. Brennan. I believe that when you have a chance to do right by someone, you take it. Whether it's fate or luck or just dumb circumstance, you take it. Mrs. O'Brien was silent for a long moment. Dr. Marsh watched them both, saying nothing. Finally, she reached out and swept the money off the table. 2 weeks paid in advance. After that, we'll see. She fixed Cal with a hard stare. I run a respectable house, Mr. Brennan. No drinking, no gambling, no unsavory behavior. You or those children cause trouble, you're out. Understood? Yes, ma'am. The girls will have a room on the second floor. You'll take the small room at the end of the hall. Separate quarters, separate entrances. I won't have anyone questioning the propriety of my establishment. Understood. Breakfast is at 7, dinner at noon, supper at 6. Don't be late. She tucked the money into her apron pocket and headed for the door. I'll have the rooms ready by this afternoon. You can bring the children then. She left without another word. Dr. Marsh let out a long breath. Well, that went better than expected. Did it? Margaret O'Brien hasn't taken in a child since her own sons died in the war. The fact that she agreed at all is something of a miracle. The doctor clapped Cal on the shoulder. You must have made an impression, son. What kind of impression? The kind that reminds her of someone she used to know, I suspect. Dr. Marsh smiled slightly. Her husband was a lot like you from what I've heard. Stubborn, idealistic, too proud to know when he was beat. He died trying to save a family from a fire about 10 years back. Cal didn't know what to say to that. Take care of those girls, Mr. Brennan, and take care of yourself. Something tells me you've got a hard road ahead of you. The doctor walked him back to the examination room where Emma was sitting up now watching Gracie sleep. How is she? Cal asked. Better. The fever's down a little. Emma's voice was cautious, like she didn't want to hope too much. She woke up once, asked for water, then went back to sleep. That's good. That's real good. Cal crouched down beside her. Listen, Emma. I found us a place to stay. A boarding house in town run by a woman named Mrs. O'Brien. It's clean and warm, and she serves 3 meals a day. For how long? Long as we need. And then what? Then I find work, save money, figure out something permanent. He paused. One step at a time, remember. Emma nodded slowly. One step at a time. I need to go out for a while. Talk to some folks about work, make some arrangements. Can you stay here with Gracie until I get back? Yes. The doc will be here if you need anything, and Mrs. O'Brien will have the rooms ready this afternoon so we can move you somewhere more comfortable. Emma looked at him with those old weary eyes. You're really coming back. I'm really coming back. Promise. Promise. She held out her small hand, pinky extended. Cal stared at it for a moment, not understanding. It's how Mama used to make promises, Emma explained quietly. Pinky swear. It means you can't break it no matter what. Cal felt something twist in his chest. He extended his own pinky and hooked it around hers. Pinky swear, he said. I'll be back before dark. Emma almost smiled. Almost. The next 4 hours taught Cal exactly how hard finding work in Copper Hollow was going to be. He tried the livery stable first. The owner, a grizzled man named Patterson, listened to his pitch with half-closed eyes and then shook his head. Don't need no help, son. Business is slow enough in winter. Come back in spring, maybe. The general store was the same story. The freight company. The blacksmith. Everywhere Cal went, the answer was some variation of not hiring, or can't afford it, or try somewhere else. By midday, he'd spoken to every business owner in town and come away with nothing but sore feet and a growing sense of desperation. There's always the ranches, one man suggested. Big spreads north of here, they sometimes take on extra hands for winter work. Which ones? Broken Creek's the biggest. About 10 miles out. Talk to the foreman man named Garrett. He's a hard ass, but he's fair. Cal thanked the man and headed for the livery to get whiskey. 10 miles in the snow, after barely sleeping, after everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. His body was screaming for rest. But those girls needed food and shelter and medicine, and all of that cost money. So Cal saddled his horse and rode out into the cold. The ride to Broken Creek took 3 hours through fresh powder. Cal's mind wandered as he rode, turning over the events of the past day. Yesterday morning, He'd been just another drifter heading toward a job that didn't matter in a town he'd never heard of. Now, he was responsible for 2 orphaned girls and had no earthly idea how to take care of them. "What were you thinking?" a voice in his head demanded. "You don't know the first thing about children. You can't even take care of yourself half the time." But another voice, quieter and steadier, answered back. "You couldn't ride past. You saw them in that snow, and you couldn't ride past. That means something." He reached Broken Creek as the afternoon sun was starting its descent. The ranch was impressive, sprawling across hundreds of acres, with a main house, bunkhouse, barn, and half a dozen outbuildings. Cattle dotted the distant hills, and Cal could see hands moving between the structures. He rode up to the main house and was met by a man about his own age, lean and suspicious. "Help you?" "Looking for the foreman. Name of Garrett, I was told." "That's me. What do you want?" "Work. I'm good with horses and cattle, can mend fences, dig post holes, do whatever needs doing. I work hard and I don't cause trouble." Garrett looked him over, taking in the worn clothes, the tired horse, the desperate look Cal was trying hard to hide. "Where you from?" "Tennessee originally. Been moving around the territories for a few years." "Got references?" "I worked the Bar M in Colorado last spring. Foreman there was named Hicks. He'll vouch for me if you want to send word." "That's a long way to go for a reference check." Garrett scratched his jaw. "Why'd you leave?" "Job ended. Moved on." "Where were you headed before you stopped here?" "Montana. Had a job lined up, but I got delayed." "Delayed how?" Cal hesitated, then decided honesty was probably his best option. "Found 2 little girls abandoned in yesterday's blizzard. Their father left them to die. I brought them into town, and now I need work to pay for their keep." Garrett's eyebrows rose. "That's a hell of a delay." "Yes, sir." "These girls, they your kin?" "No, sir, just found them." "And now you're taking responsibility for them, 2 children you don't even know." "Someone has to." Garrett was quiet for a long moment, studying Cal with an expression he couldn't read. "I ain't got any openings right now," he said finally. "Winter's slow, and I've already got more hands than I need." Cal's heart sank. "I understand. But I could use someone for odd jobs. Fence work mostly. Some of the lines got damaged in the storm and need mending before we lose cattle." Garrett paused. "Pays not much. $1 a day, and you'd have to ride out from town each morning. No room in the bunkhouse for non-regular hands." "I'll take it." "You sure that's a long ride in cold weather for not much pay?" "I'll take it," Cal repeated. "When can I start?" "Tomorrow if you want. Be here at sunrise. I'll show you which sections need work." Cal felt relief wash over him like a warm bath. It wasn't much. It wasn't nearly enough, but it was something. "Thank you, sir. I appreciate the chance." "Don't thank me yet. The work's hard and the pay's lousy. You might be cursing my name by week's end." "I doubt that." Garrett almost smiled. "We'll see. Now get going before you freeze to death. I'll see you at sunrise." Cal rode back to town with the sun setting behind him, and something that felt almost like hope kindling in his chest. When he reached the doctor's office, Emma was waiting at the window, her face pressed against the glass. She saw him coming and disappeared from view, and by the time he'd dismounted, she was at the door. "You came back." "I told you I would." "I know, but I still—" She stopped, swallowing hard. "Gracie's awake. She's asking for you." "For me?" "She wants to thank the man who saved us. That's what she said. She wants to thank the man who saved us." Cal followed Emma inside to find Gracie sitting up in bed, pale but alert, her golden hair tangled around her face. She looked up when he entered, and her eyes were the blue of a summer sky. "Are you the angel?" she asked, her voice small and scratchy. Cal blinked. "The what?" "Mama always said angels would watch over us. Are you one of them?" Something cracked open in Cal's chest. He crossed to the bed and crouched down beside it. "I ain't an angel, sweetheart. Just a man who happened to be in the right place at the right time. But you saved us. I helped, that's all. Emma says you're going to take care of us now. Is that true? Cal looked at Emma, who was watching him with those measuring eyes. Yes, he said. It's true. Forever. The question hit him like a punch. Forever. Such a big word for such a small girl. For as long as you need me, he said carefully. How's that? Gracie seemed to consider this. Then she reached out and took his hand in both of hers. Okay, she said. I trust you. And just like that, Cal Brennan's life changed forever. They moved to Mrs. O'Brien's boarding house that evening. The room was small, but clean, with 2 narrow beds, a washstand, and a window overlooking the main street. Emma arranged their few possessions with careful precision, while Gracie sat on the bed and watched. Mrs. O'Brien appeared in the doorway with an armful of quilts. Extra blankets, she said gruffly. Nights are cold up here. Make sure the little one stays warm. Thank you, ma'am, Emma said quietly. Mrs. O'Brien hesitated, looking at the 2 girls in their threadbare dresses, their thin faces, their hollow eyes. Supper's in an hour, she said finally. Don't be late. She left, and Cal exhaled slowly. She's not as scary as she looks, he told Emma. Give her time. She doesn't want us here. Maybe not, but she's letting us stay anyway. That counts for something. Emma nodded, but she didn't look convinced. That night after supper, Cal sat in the girls' room while they settled into their beds. Gracie fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from the day. But Emma lay awake staring at the ceiling. You found work? She asked quietly. I did, at a ranch called Broken Creek. Fence mending mostly. Pays not great, but it's something. How much? $1 a day. Emma did the math in her head. That's $7 a week. And the room costs $2 a week. So we'd have $5 left for food and medicine, and you don't need to worry about the money, Emma. Someone has to. Cal smiled despite himself. How about you let me worry about the money, and you focus on getting your sister better? Deal. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said very softly, What happens if you can't find enough work? What happens if the money runs out? Then I'll find more work. I'll do whatever it takes. But what if you can't? What if... Emma. Cal leaned forward, catching her gaze. I made you a promise. I ain't going to break it. No matter what happens, no matter how hard it gets, I'm going to take care of you and your sister. You believe me? She studied his face for a long time. I want to, she whispered. I want to believe you. Then start there. Start with wanting to, and the rest will follow. He stood and moved toward the door. Cal. He turned back. Thank you, Emma said, for stopping, for not riding past. You're welcome, Emma Ruth. He paused in the doorway. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. He closed the door softly behind him and stood in the hallway for a moment, listening to the silence of the sleeping house. You're in over your head, that voice said again. You don't know what you're doing. But for the first time in a very long time, Cal didn't care. He had a purpose now, something worth fighting for, and that was more than he'd had in years. He walked to his small room at the end of the hall, lay down on the narrow bed, and slept better than he had in months. 3 weeks passed, and Cal learned what exhaustion truly meant. Every morning before dawn, he rode 10 miles through snow and ice to Broken Creek Ranch. Every evening after dark, he rode back, his hands cracked and bleeding from fence work, his body aching in places he didn't know could ache. The $1-a-day wage barely covered their expenses, and Cal watched his savings dwindle with growing dread. But the girls were safe. That's what mattered. Gracie's fever had broken, and she was eating again, laughing again, asking endless questions about horses and cowboys and whether angels really had wings. Emma remained guarded, watchful, but Cal caught her smiling sometimes when she thought no one was looking. It was enough. It had to be enough. Then Reverend Josiah Thorne came to call. Cal was out at the ranch when it happened. He came back that evening to find Emma sitting rigid at the supper table, her food untouched, her face pale as milk. "What's wrong?" Emma's eyes darted to Mrs. O'Brien, who was clearing dishes with unusual force. "A man came today," Emma said quietly. "From the church." Cal's stomach tightened. "What man?" "Reverend Thorne." Mrs. O'Brien set down the dishes with a clatter. "He heard about the girls, wanted to see them for himself, assess their situation." "Assess their situation? What does that mean?" "It means he's concerned about the propriety of the arrangement, Mr. Brennan. A single man taking responsibility for 2 young girls." Mrs. O'Brien's voice was carefully neutral, but Cal heard the warning underneath. "He asked a lot of questions. About you, about your background, about your intentions." "My intentions?" "He wanted to know if you planned to adopt them legally, if you had the means to provide for them long term, if you understood the gravity of what you were undertaking." Cal felt anger rising in his chest. "And what did you tell him?" "I told him the truth. That you're working yourself half to death trying to keep these children fed. That you've been nothing but decent and proper since you arrived. That whatever your faults might be, neglect isn't one of them." "Did he believe you?" Mrs. O'Brien hesitated. That hesitation told Cal everything he needed to know. "He's coming back tomorrow. Wants to speak with you directly." Cal looked at Emma. She was gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles had gone white. "He wants to take us away," she whispered. "I could tell. He kept asking about orphanages and foster families and proper Christian homes. Nobody's taking you anywhere. You can't stop him. He's a reverend. People listen to him. I don't care if he's the Pope himself. You and Gracie are staying with me." "But what if—" "Emma." Cal crouched down beside her chair, making her meet his eyes. "Remember what I promised you. I ain't breaking that promise. Not for some preacher, not for anyone." Emma's lower lip trembled. "Papa made promises too." The words hit Cal like a physical blow. He took Emma's hands in his, feeling how small and cold they were. "I know your papa hurt you. I know he broke your trust. But I'm not him, Emma. I'm still here, ain't I? 3 weeks now and I'm still here." "3 weeks isn't forever." "No, it ain't, but it's a start." He squeezed her hands gently. "Give me a chance to prove myself. That's all I'm asking." Emma stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded just once. "Okay. Okay. Now eat your supper before it gets cold." That night, Cal couldn't sleep. He lay in his narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, turning the situation over in his mind. A reverend with questions. A community with doubts. 2 little girls, whose fate hung on whether Cal could convince a bunch of strangers that he was fit to raise them. "What if they're right?" a treacherous voice whispered. "What if you can't do this? What if those girls would be better off somewhere else?" He pushed the thought away. He'd made a promise. He was going to keep it. But when dawn came, and Cal rode out to Broken Creek, the doubt rode with him. Reverend Thorne was waiting when Cal returned that evening. The man stood on Mrs. O'Brien's porch, like he owned it, tall and thin in his black coat, his face all sharp angles and cold eyes. He held a Bible in one hand, and Cal noticed how his fingers stroked the leather cover almost possessively. "Mr. Brennan." The Reverend's voice was smooth, practiced. "I've been hoping we could talk." "So I heard." Cal dismounted and tied whiskey to the post. "What can I do for you, Reverend? I think you know." Thorne stepped down from the porch, closing the distance between them. "These children you've taken in, the Holloway girls. What about them? I'm concerned about their welfare, as is the entire congregation of First Methodist Church." Their welfare is fine. They're fed, clothed, sheltered. Gracie's getting stronger every day. Material needs are only part of the equation, Mr. Brennan. There are spiritual considerations, moral considerations. Thorne's eyes were cold as January ice. A man alone raising 2 young girls. Surely you can see how that might appear unseemly. Cal felt his jaw tighten. There ain't nothing unseemly about it. I'm taking care of them, that's all. With what resources $1 a day from odd jobs? The Reverend smiled thinly. I've made inquiries. You have no family, no property, no permanent employment. You're a drifter, Mr. Brennan, a man without roots or stability. I'm a man who saw 2 children dying in a blizzard and did something about it. A noble impulse, certainly. But impulses don't raise children. They need consistency, structure, a proper home with proper guidance. And you think you can provide that better than I can? I think there are families in this community who could. Good Christian families with means and experience. Thorne stepped closer, lowering his voice. The Whitfields, for example. Thomas and Clara Whitfield have been praying for children for years. They have a comfortable home, financial security, and a deep commitment to moral education. Cal's hands curled into fists at his sides. Those girls aren't livestock to be parceled out to the highest bidder. Of course not, but their best interests must be considered. And frankly, Mr. Brennan, I'm not convinced that you represent their best interests. You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you appeared in this town out of nowhere with 2 traumatized children and a story that may or may not be true. I know you have no verifiable history, no references, no one to vouch for your character. Thorne's smile sharpened. I know that if I were to contact the territorial authorities about this situation, they would have serious questions. The threat hung in the air between them, cold and clear. Are you threatening me, Reverend? I'm offering you an opportunity to do the right thing. Let the Whitfields take the girls. You can stay in town, visit them if you wish, but let them go somewhere they can truly flourish. No. Thorne blinked. No. You heard me. Those girls aren't going anywhere. They're staying with me. Mr. Brennan, I don't think you understand the gravity. I understand just fine. You want to take 2 children who've already lost everything and hand them over to strangers because you don't like the look of me. Because I'm not respectable enough, not wealthy enough, not church-going enough for your approval. Cal stepped forward, and something in his face made Thorne take a step back. But here's what you don't understand, Reverend. Those girls have been abandoned once already. Their father walked away and left them to die. And I'll be damned if I let anyone else do the same. This isn't about abandonment. It's about proper care. Proper care. I've been working sunrise to sunset every day for 3 weeks to keep those girls fed. I ride 20 miles through snow and ice, come home with my hands bleeding and my back screaming just so they can have a warm bed and 3 meals a day. That's proper care, Reverend. That's love in action, not just pretty words from a pulpit. Thorne's expression hardened. You're making a mistake, Mr. Brennan. I have influence in this community. I can make things very difficult for you. Then make them difficult. I ain't backing down. They stared at each other, neither willing to give ground. Finally, Thorne stepped back, his face a mask of cold fury. Very well. But this isn't over. When you fail, and you will fail, those children will suffer for your pride. He turned and walked away, his black coat billowing behind him like a crow's wings. Cal watched him go, his heart pounding. What have you done? That voice whispered. You just made an enemy of the most powerful man in town. But another voice, stronger and clearer, answered back. You did what was right. You protected those girls. He turned and went inside to face whatever came next. Emma was waiting just inside the door. She'd heard everything. He's going to try to take us away, she said, her voice flat with fear. I knew it. I knew something bad was going to happen. He's going to try, but trying and succeeding are 2 different things. You can't stop him, Cal. He's a reverend. He knows people, important people. So do I. Cal paused. Well, I'm getting to know people. Dr. Marsh thinks I'm all right. Mrs. O'Brien's coming around. Garrett at the ranch says I'm the hardest worker he's had in years. But they're not as powerful as a reverend. Maybe not. But there's more of them. Cal sat down in the parlor chair and pulled Emma onto the seat beside him. Listen to me. That man wants to scare us. Wants us to give up without a fight. But we ain't going to do that. You hear me? We're going to fight. How? By proving him wrong. By showing everyone in this town that I can take care of you and Gracie. By being so good at this that nobody can question it. Emma was quiet for a moment. What if you can't? What if you fail? Then I'll fail trying, but I ain't quitting, Emma. Not today, not ever. She leaned against his shoulder, and Cal felt some of the tension drain out of her small body. I hate him, she whispered. That reverend, I hate him. I know, me too. Is that wrong to hate a man of God? He's a man, Emma, just a man, and men can be wrong even when they think they're right. They sat together in the fading light, two people bound by circumstance and choice, facing an uncertain future with nothing but each other. The week that followed was the hardest of Cal's life. Word spread through Copper Hollow like wildfire. The drifter, the orphan girls, the Reverend's concerns. Suddenly people who'd been friendly before wouldn't meet Cal's eyes. Shopkeepers who'd been happy to extend credit wanted payment in cash. Even Mrs. O'Brien grew distant, though she didn't rescind her hospitality. I'm not taking sides, she told Cal one evening. But you should know the Reverend's been talking to people, making his case. He's got half the town convinced you're some kind of danger to those children. That's ridiculous. I know it is. You know it is. But folks around here, they trust Reverend Thorne. He's been leading the church for 20 years. He married most of them, baptized their children, buried their dead. She shook her head. Going against him, it's not something people do lightly. So what am I supposed to do? Just give up. I didn't say that. I'm just telling you how things stand. Bah. Cal appreciated her honesty, even if it made him want to put his fist through a wall. The worst moment came on Sunday. Cal took the girls to church because that's what respectable people did, and he needed to appear respectable. They sat in the back pew, Gracie between Cal and Emma, all three of them dressed in the best clothes they had, which wasn't saying much. Reverend Thorne's sermon was about charity, about the responsibility of good Christians to care for the less fortunate, about how sometimes the kindest thing you could do for someone was to help them accept their limitations. Every word was a knife aimed directly at Cal. There are those who believe good intentions are enough. Thorne intoned his eyes, finding Cal's in the crowd. But intentions without means are merely wishes, and wishes don't feed hungry children or warm cold bodies or provide the moral guidance that young souls require. Emma's hand found Cal's and squeezed tight. We must have the courage to do what is truly best for those in need, even when it is difficult, even when it means setting aside our pride, even when it means admitting that someone else might be better equipped to provide what we cannot. Gracie tugged on Cal's sleeve. Is he talking about us? Hush, sweetheart. But I don't like him. He looks at us mean. I know. Just sit quiet. After the service, people filed out without speaking to Cal. He might as well have been invisible, but as he led the girls toward the door, a hand touched his arm. Mr. Brennan? Cal turned. A woman stood before him, perhaps 40 years old, with kind eyes and worry lines around her mouth. Behind her stood a man of similar age, quiet and solid. I'm Clara Whitfield, the woman said. And this is my husband, Thomas. Cal felt his chest tighten. The Whitfields. The family Thorne wanted to give the girls to. I know who you are. I imagine you do. Clara's voice was gentle, almost apologetic. The Reverend has spoken to us about the situation. He seems to think we'd be a good fit for Emma and Grace. Is that what you think? Clara hesitated. She looked at the girls standing close to Emma's face guarded, and Gracie's confused. I think those children have already been through enough upheaval. I think they need stability and consistency, not more change." She met Cal's eyes. "And I think you love them. Anyone can see that." Cal blinked, caught off guard. "You're not here to take them." "I'm here to offer help, if you need it." Clara glanced at her husband, who nodded. "Thomas is a carpenter. He knows people, has connections. If you're looking for more work, better paying work, he might be able to point you in the right direction." "Why would you do that? Thorne wants you to take these girls." "Reverend Thorne wants what he thinks is best. But Thomas and we've wanted children for a long time. We know what it's like to ache for something." Clara's voice softened. "Those girls already have someone who loves them. Who are we to take that away?" Thomas spoke for the first time, his voice low and rough. "Come by my shop tomorrow. We'll talk about work." They walked away before Cal could respond, leaving him standing in the church doorway with a strange feeling blooming in his chest. Hope. Emma tugged on his hand. "They seemed nice?" "They did." "Do you think they meant it about helping?" Cal watched the Whitfields disappear down the street, two ordinary people who'd chosen kindness over conformity. "I think maybe they did." The next day, Cal went to Thomas Whitfield's carpentry shop, and everything changed. Thomas was a man of few words, but those words carried weight. He listened to Cal's situation with quiet attention, asked a few pointed questions, and then made an offer that Cal never saw coming. "There's a homestead about 5 miles east of town. Belongs to a man named Henderson who's moving back east. Small spread but good land. House needs work, but it's standing." Thomas paused. "He's willing to sell cheap, and he's willing to take payments." "I ain't got money for land." "You've got skills. Henderson needs someone to finish the fencing before spring. Says he'll knock the price down if you do the labor yourself." Thomas fixed Cal with a steady gaze. "It's not much, but it's a start. A real home for those girls, not just a rented room." Cal felt his throat tighten. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." "I know what Clara told me after she met you, that you looked at those children like they were your whole world." Thomas shrugged. "A man who looks at children that way, he deserves a chance. Thorne won't like it. Thorne doesn't own this town no matter what he thinks." A ghost of a smile crossed Thomas's weathered face. "Besides, I've been disagreeing with that man for 20 years. What's one more time?" Cal reached out and shook Thomas's hand, gripping hard. "I don't know how to thank you." "Keep those girls safe. That's thanks enough." That evening, Cal told Emma about the homestead, about the possibility of a real home, their own place somewhere they could build a life together. Emma listened with wide eyes. "A house. A real house. It needs work, a lot of work, but yeah, a real house. With bedrooms. 2 of them. And a kitchen. A kitchen, a parlor, even a porch." Cal grinned. "What do you think?" Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then her face crumpled, and she started to cry. Cal pulled her close, alarmed. "Hey, what's wrong? I thought you'd be happy." "I am happy." Her voice was muffled against his chest. "I'm so happy I don't know what to do. I thought we were going to lose everything. I thought that Reverend was going to take us away, and we'd never see you again." "Shh, that ain't happening. I told you I wasn't going anywhere." "I know, but I was scared. I'm still scared." She pulled back to look at him, tears streaming down her face. "What if something goes wrong? What if Thorne convinces people to take us anyway? Then we'll deal with it. Together. Promise. Promise." Gracie appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Why is Emma crying? Did something bad happen?" Cal scooped her up with his free arm, holding both girls close. "Something good happened, sweetheart. Something real good." "What?" "We're going to have a home. A real home just for us." Gracie's face lit up. "With a garden. Can we have a garden?" Cal laughed. the sound surprising him. He couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed. "We can have whatever you want, Gracie girl. Whatever you want." That night, for the first time since he'd found them under that oak tree, Cal let himself believe it might actually work out, that he might actually give these girls the life they deserved. But he should have known better. Because 3 days later, Gracie collapsed. Cal was at the Henderson place working on the fence line when he heard the horse approaching. He turned to see Thomas Whitfield riding hard across the frozen field, his face grim. "You need to come. Now." "What happened?" "The little one. Gracie. She fell sick again. Doc Marsh says it's bad." Cal didn't remember mounting whiskey. Didn't remember the ride back to town. One moment he was standing in an empty field, and the next he was bursting through the door of Dr. Marsh's office, his heart hammering against his ribs. Emma sat in the corner, her face white as chalk. Mrs. O'Brien stood beside her, one hand on the girl's shoulder. And on the examination table, Gracie lay motionless, her skin flushed with fever, her breathing shallow and labored. "What happened?" Cal's voice came out raw. "She was fine this morning. She was eating breakfast and talking about the garden. The fever never really left." Dr. Marsh didn't look up from his patient. It retreated, but it was waiting. Sometimes that happens with children. They seem to recover, and then what? What's wrong with her? Pneumonia. The cold she caught in that blizzard, it settled in her lungs. The doctor's voice was carefully neutral. "I'm doing everything I can, but you need to understand this is serious. Very serious." Cal moved to the table and took Gracie's small hand in his. It burned like a coal. "Hey, Gracie girl, it's Cal. I'm here." Her eyelids fluttered. "Cal?" "Right here, sweetheart. Right here. I don't feel good." "I know. But the doctor's going to make you better. You just have to rest, okay? Just rest, and let us take care of you. Will you stay?" "I ain't going anywhere." Her eyes closed, and she drifted back into feverish sleep. Cal didn't let go of her hand. Hours passed. Dr. Marsh administered medicines, applied compresses, did everything medical science could offer. Mrs. O'Brien brought food that no one ate. Emma sat in her corner, silent and unmoving, watching her sister with eyes that held no hope. Sometime after midnight, the door opened and Reverend Thorne walked in. Cal was on his feet before he could think. "Get out." "I came to pray for the child." Thorne's voice was smooth, sanctimonious. "Surely you won't deny her the comfort of God's presence in her hour of need." "I said get out." "Mr. Brennan, this is exactly what I warned you about. These children needed proper care, proper conditions. If they'd been with the Whitfields—" Something snapped in Cal's chest. He crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed Thorne by the collar, slamming him against the wall. "You say one more word about those girls, and I swear to God I'll—" "Cal!" Dr. Marsh's sharp voice cut through the red haze. "This isn't helping." Cal stared into Thorne's cold eyes, his fists shaking with the effort of restraint. Then he released the man and stepped back. "Get out," he said again, quieter this time, "and don't come back." Thorne straightened his collar, his face a mask of righteous indignation. "You've just made the biggest mistake of your life, Mr. Brennan. When that child dies, and she will die, everyone in this town will know who's to blame." He left, and Cal stood in the middle of the room, his hands still trembling. Emma's voice came from the corner, small and broken. "Is Gracie going to die?" Cal turned to look at her. This girl who'd already lost so much, who'd held her family together through impossible circumstances, who'd trusted him despite every reason not to. "No," he said, and he poured every ounce of conviction he had into that single word. "She's not going to die. I won't let her." But even as he said it, he watched Gracie's labored breathing, and he felt the cold hand of doubt closing around his heart. Dawn came gray and silent. Cal sat beside Gracie's bed, holding her hand, watching the shallow rise and fall of her chest. Emma had finally fallen asleep in her corner, curled up under a blanket Mrs. O'Brien had brought. "She's a fighter, this one." Cal looked up. Dr. Marsh stood in the doorway, his face lined with exhaustion. The fevers dropped a little. Not much, but some. The doctor moved to check Gracie's pulse. "Whatever else you might be, Mr. Brennan, you're not bad luck for these children. That little girl should have died 3 times over by now. In the blizzard, from the initial fever, and now this, but she keeps holding on. She's stubborn, gets it from her sister. Gets it from you too, I'd wager." Dr. Marsh met Cal's eyes. "I heard what happened with Thorne last night. Half the town's talking about it." "I don't care what the town's talking about. You should, because half of them are saying you were wrong to threaten a man of God." The doctor paused. "And the other half are saying it's about time someone stood up to that sanctimonious bastard." Cal blinked. "You don't like him either." "I've known Josiah Thorne for 30 years. He's a man who believes he always knows best, and heaven help anyone who disagrees." Dr. Marsh shook his head. "What you're doing for these girls, it's not wrong, Cal. It's hard, and it's messy, and it might not work out, but it's not wrong. Don't let him convince you otherwise." Cal looked down at Gracie's pale face, at Emma sleeping in the corner, at the future he was fighting so hard to build. "I won't," he said. "I can't." Because giving up on them would mean giving up on himself. And Cal Brennan had done a lot of things in his life, but he'd never been a quitter. So he held Gracie's hand, and he waited for the fever to break, and he prayed to a God he wasn't sure he believed in. "Please, please let her live. I'll do anything. Just let her live." And somewhere in the darkness, a small hand squeezed his. Gracie's fever broke on the 3rd day. Cal was dozing in the chair beside her bed when he felt her hand move in his. His eyes snapped open, and there she was looking up at him with those summer sky eyes, pale but present. "Cal, I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here. I had bad dreams." Her voice was a whisper rough from disuse. "Mama was calling me, but I couldn't find her." Cal's throat closed. He squeezed her hand gently. "You're safe now. The dreams are over." "Is Emma okay?" "Emma's fine. She's been worried sick about you." "Don't tell her I was scared. She'll worry more." Cal almost laughed. This little girl, 5 years old, just back from death's door, and her first thought was protecting her sister. "I won't tell her. But you gotta rest now." "Okay, doctor's orders." "Will you stay?" "I ain't going anywhere." Gracie's eyes drifted closed, but this time her breathing was deep and steady. The sleep of healing, not fever. Cal bowed his head and let the tears come. Emma burst through the door 10 minutes later, having been fetched by Mrs. O'Brien. She skidded to a halt beside the bed, her face a mixture of hope and terror. "Is she? Fever broke. She's going to be all right." Emma made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. She grabbed Cal's arm, then Gracie's hand, then Cal's arm again, like she couldn't decide what to hold on to. "She woke up. She talked to you. Asked about you first thing. Wanted to make sure you were okay." Emma's face crumpled. She pressed her forehead against Gracie's blanket and cried, really cried the way she hadn't let herself cry since their father walked into that storm. Cal put his hand on her back and let her release all the fear and grief she'd been carrying. "It's okay," he said softly. "It's okay to let go now." "I was so scared. I thought she was going to—" Emma couldn't finish the sentence. "I know, me too. You didn't show it. That's because someone had to be strong. Figured it might as well be me." Emma lifted her head, her eyes red and swollen. "You were scared too. Terrified, but being scared doesn't mean you give up. It just means you keep going anyway." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something she'd never done before. She threw her arms around his neck and held on tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for not leaving." Cal hugged her back, feeling something shift and settle in his chest. This girl who'd been so guarded, so careful, was finally letting him in. "I made you a promise, Emma Ruth. I ain't in the habit of breaking promises." They stayed like that for a long time, the three of them together, the worst finally behind them. Word of Gracie's recovery spread through Copper Hollow faster than the news of her illness had. And with it spread something else, a shifting of sentiment, a turning of the tide. Mrs. O'Brien was the first to say it aloud. "People are talking," she told Cal 2 days later, as Gracie sat up in bed for the first time eating soup and demanding to know when she could go outside. "About you, about what you've done." "What are they saying?" "That you sat by that child's bed for 3 days without sleeping. That you refused to leave even when Thorne tried to throw you out. That you told him to his face you'd fight anyone who tried to take those girls." Mrs. O'Brien's lips twitched. "Some folks are saying you're either the bravest man in Wyoming or the craziest." "Can't I be both?" "I suspect you might be." She paused, her expression softening. "The point is, the wind's changing, Cal. Thorne's been preaching about proper Christian families and moral guardianship, but people saw you. They saw how you fought for that little girl, and they're starting to wonder if maybe the Reverend's wrong about you." "Starting to wonder ain't the same as believing." "No, but it's a start." That afternoon, Thomas Whitfield came by with news of his own. "Henderson's agreed to the terms. The homestead's yours soon as you can make the first payment." Thomas handed Cal a folded document. "I drew up the papers myself. Everything's legal and proper." Cal stared at the paper in his hands. His own land. His own home. Something he'd never dreamed of having. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll work hard and raise those girls right. That's payment enough." "I will. I swear it." Thomas nodded, satisfied. "One more thing. Clara wants to help with the girls while Gracie recovers, teaching them their letters, helping them catch up on schooling, if that's all right with you." "Why would you and Clara do all this?" "After everything Thorne said, because Thorne's a man who thinks he knows what's best for everyone. But Clara and we've learned that sometimes God works through unexpected people in unexpected ways." Thomas met Cal's eyes. "You're not what anyone expected, Cal. But maybe that's exactly what those girls needed." He left, and Cal sat with the deed in his hands, trying to process everything that was happening. A home, allies, a chance. It was more than he'd ever had before. Gracie was strong enough to leave Dr. Marsh's office after a week. Cal carried her back to the boarding house wrapped in blankets, Emma walking beside them, her hand clutching the edge of Cal's coat like she was afraid he might disappear. Mrs. O'Brien had prepared the room for their return. Fresh sheets, extra blankets, a small bouquet of dried flowers on the windowsill. "Flowers!" Gracie exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. "Are those for me?" "They're for both of you," Mrs. O'Brien said gruffly. "Don't make a fuss about it." But Cal saw the way her eyes softened when Gracie reached up and kissed her cheek. "Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien. They're beautiful." The older woman's face flushed. "Well, get some rest, child. You're still recovering." She bustled out, and Cal could have sworn he heard her sniffling in the hallway. That night, after the girls were asleep, Cal sat in his room and counted his money. The job at Broken Creek had ended when Gracie got sick, but Thomas had paid him for some carpentry work, and there was still enough to cover the boarding house for 2 more weeks. After that, he'd need income. Real income. Tomorrow he'd ride out to the Henderson place and see what needed to be done. The sooner he could get the house livable, the sooner they could move in and stop paying for the boarding house. Every dollar saved was a dollar toward their future. He was making plans. Real plans for the first time in years. It felt strange. Strange and terrifying and wonderful all at once. The confrontation Cal had been expecting came 3 days later. He was at the Henderson place repairing the roof where winter storms had torn away shingles when he heard horses approaching. 3 of them by the sound. He climbed down from the ladder and waited. Reverend Thorne rode at the front, flanked by 2 men Cal didn't recognize. Town officials by the look of their clothes. Men with authority. Mr. Brennan? Thorne's voice was cold as the wind. We need to talk. So talk. These men are representatives of the territorial government, Mr. Hawkins and Mr. Peters. Thorne gestured to his companions. They're here to assess the situation with the Holloway children. Cal's stomach tightened. What situation? The situation of two minor children in the care of an unmarried man with no legal standing, no permanent residence, and no verifiable means of support. Thorne smiled thinly. I've filed a formal complaint, Mr. Brennan. These gentlemen are here to determine whether the children should be removed to a more suitable environment. Cal looked at the two officials. They wore the expressions of men who'd rather be anywhere else. Is that true? Hawkins. The older of the two cleared his throat. We've received a complaint, yes. We're required to investigate. And what does investigating mean? We need to see the children, interview them, assess their living conditions, and your ability to provide for them. Hawkins shifted uncomfortably. It's just procedure, Mr. Brennan. Nothing's been decided. Nothing except that you're here on Thorne's say-so, ready to take those girls away. We're here to determine what's best for the children. That's all. Cal felt anger rising in his chest, hot and dangerous. But he forced it down. Getting arrested for assaulting government officials wouldn't help anyone. Fine. You want to see the girls come to the boarding house this afternoon. But I'll tell you right now, those children are safe and healthy and cared for. And if you try to take them based on nothing but this man's prejudice. He jerked his chin toward Thorne. You'll have a fight on your hands. Is that a threat, Mr. Brennan? It's a fact. The officials exchanged glances. Thorne's face was a mask of righteous satisfaction. We'll see you at 3 o'clock, Hawkins said. Please have the children present. They rode away, and Cal stood in the cold, his hands shaking with barely contained rage. He had 3 hours to figure out how to save everything he'd built. Cal rode back to town at a gallop and burst into Thomas Whitfield's shop without knocking. I need help. Thomas looked up from his workbench, taking in Cal's wild eyes and heaving breath. What happened? Cal told him. About Thorne, about the officials, about the threat hanging over everything. Thomas listened without interrupting. When Cal finished, the older man was quiet for a long moment. You need witnesses, he said finally. People who can vouch for your character, for how you've treated those girls. Who's going to stand up against Thorne? Half this town does whatever he says. Not half. Maybe not even a quarter when it comes down to it. Thomas set down his tools. Wait here. He disappeared into the back of the shop. Cal heard voices low and urgent. Then Thomas returned with Clara beside him. I'm coming with you, Clara said. Those officials need to hear from someone who's actually spent time with Emma and Gracie. Someone who can tell them what kind of man you really are. Clara, you don't have to. I want to. Those girls deserve someone fighting for them. She pulled on her coat. Thomas, go find Dr. Marsh. And Mrs. O'Brien. Anyone else who might be willing to speak. What about Thorne? Let me worry about Reverend Thorne. Clara's eyes had gone hard. That man has been telling this town what to think for far too long. It's time someone pushed back. At 3 o'clock, Cal stood in Mrs. O'Brien's parlor, with Emma and Gracie beside him. The two officials sat across from them, notebooks, open faces, carefully neutral. Thorne stood by the window, arms crossed, watching like a vulture waiting for something to die. But he wasn't alone. Thomas and Clara Whitfield stood behind Cal. Dr. Marsh had come, despite having patients to see. Mrs. O'Brien hovered near the door, her presence a silent statement. And to Cal's shock, 3 other townspeople had appeared as well. People he barely knew, who'd heard what was happening and come to stand with him. Hawkins surveyed the crowd, his eyebrows rising. This is unexpected. These people are here to speak on my behalf, Cal said. Unless that's against your procedures. No. Character witnesses are perfectly acceptable. Hawkins glanced at Thorne, who was scowling. In fact, they're encouraged. The interview began. The officials asked Cal about his background, his employment, his plans for the future. He answered honestly, hiding nothing, including the parts that didn't reflect well on him. The years of drifting, the jobs that hadn't worked out, the fact that he'd come to Copper Hollow with nothing but $40 and a horse. Then they asked about the girls. "Emma, can you tell us about your life with Mr. Brennan?" Emma sat up straight, her chin lifted. Cal had never seen her look so determined. "Cal saved our lives. He found us in the blizzard when we were dying. He stayed with us all night to keep us warm. He brought us here and found us a place to stay." Her voice was clear and strong. "He works every day to take care of us. He reads to us at night. He held my sister's hand when she was sick and never left her side, not even to sleep. And do you feel safe with him?" "Safer than I've ever felt with anyone." Emma's eyes met Cal's across the room. "He promised he wouldn't leave us, and he hasn't. Not once." Gracie spoke up next, her small voice filling the silence. "Cal's my friend. He calls me Gracie Girl and tells me stories about horses. He said we're going to have a garden and chickens and maybe even a dog." She looked at the officials with wide, earnest eyes. "Please don't take us away from him. He's the only one who didn't leave." Hawkins's pen had stopped moving. He was staring at Gracie like he'd never seen a child before. "Those are very strong feelings," he said finally. "But feelings don't necessarily—" "May I speak?" Clara stepped forward, her voice cutting through the room. "My name is Clara Whitfield. Reverend Thorne suggested that my husband and I would be suitable guardians for these children, better suited than Mr. Brennan." Thorne straightened. "That's correct. The Whitfields represent everything these girls need." "With respect, Reverend, I disagree." Clara turned to the officials. "My husband and I have wanted children for years. We would have been honored to take Emma and Gracie into our home. But these girls don't need us. They need the man who already loves them. The man who's proven that love through action, not just words." "Mrs. Whitfield," Thorne started. "I'm not finished." Clara's voice hardened. "I've watched Cal Brennan with these children. I've seen how he looks at them, how he talks to them, how he puts their needs before his own. That's not something you can teach. That's not something you can fake. That's love, pure and simple." Dr. Marsh stepped forward next. "I've been practicing medicine in this town for 30 years. I've seen good parents and bad ones. I've seen children flourish and children fail. And I'm telling you professionally and personally that those girls are thriving under Cal Brennan's care." Mrs. O'Brien spoke from the doorway. "I didn't want to take them in. I'll admit that. But Cal Brennan convinced me to give them a chance. And in all my years running this boarding house, I've never seen a man work harder or care more for anyone than he does for those girls." One by one, the other townspeople added their voices. Small testimonies. Simple truths. A growing chorus of support that seemed to surprise the officials as much as it surprised Cal. Hawkins looked at his colleague. Peters shrugged. "I think we've heard enough," Hawkins said. He turned to Thorne. "Reverend, you filed this complaint citing concerns about the children's welfare and Mr. Brennan's fitness as a guardian." "That's correct." "Based on what we've seen and heard today, I don't share those concerns." Hawkins closed his notebook. "These children appear to be well cared for, emotionally stable, and firmly attached to Mr. Brennan. Removing them would cause significant trauma with no clear benefit." Thorne's face went red. "You can't be serious. This man is a drifter, a nobody. This man is a citizen of the Wyoming Territory who has committed no crime and violated no law. He's provided for these children to the best of his ability, and they clearly want to stay with him." Hawkins stood. "Our recommendation will be that no further action is required." "This is outrageous. I demand—" "You can demand whatever you like, Reverend, but our decision is final." Hawkins nodded to Cal. "Mr. Brennan, good luck to you and the girls." The officials left. Thorne stood frozen by the window, his face a mask of barely contained fury. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "You've made enemies today, Mr. Brennan. Powerful enemies." "Maybe, but I've made friends too." Cal met the Reverend's cold gaze without flinching. "And right now that's enough." Thorne turned and walked out without another word. In the silence that followed, Emma tugged on Cal's sleeve. "Did we win?" Cal looked around the room. At Thomas and Clara smiling with relief. At Dr. Marsh nodding with satisfaction. At Mrs. O'Brien dabbing her eyes with her apron. At all the people who'd shown up when it mattered. "Yeah, Emma Ruth." His voice was rough with emotion. "I think we did." That night, after the girls were asleep, Cal sat on the boarding house porch and let himself breathe for the first time in weeks. Thomas came out to join him, settling into the chair beside him. "Hell of a day." "Hell of a day," Cal agreed. "You know Thorne won't give up. He's not the type." "I know. But today we won. That's what matters." "It is." Thomas was quiet for a moment. "You've got good people in your corner now, Cal. Don't forget that." "I won't. And those girls, they love you. Really love you. Anyone can see it." Cal thought about Emma's fierce testimony, about Gracie's simple plea, about two little girls who'd lost everything and somehow still found room in their hearts for him. "I love them too," he said. "More than I ever thought I could love anything." "Then you've got everything you need." Thomas stood and clapped Cal on the shoulder. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we start working on that house of yours." He went inside, leaving Cal alone with the stars and the cold and the strange unfamiliar feeling of hope. For the first time in his life, Cal Brennan had something worth fighting for, and he wasn't going to let it go. Spring came to Wyoming like a promise finally kept. Cal stood on the porch of the Henderson place, his place now paid in full after 3 months of back-breaking work, and watched the snow melt from the distant hills. Behind him, through the open door, he could hear Emma teaching Gracie her letters, their voices rising and falling in the rhythm of learning. A, B, C, D. Emma, I'm hungry. We just ate breakfast. I'm still hungry. Can we have cake? We don't have cake, Gracie. Can Cal make cake? Cal can't bake. He burned the biscuits yesterday. I heard that. Cal called through the door. You were supposed to. Emma called back, and he could hear the smile in her voice. 3 months. It felt like a lifetime. It felt like no time at all. The house was simple, but solid. 2 bedrooms, a main room with a fireplace, a kitchen that still smelled of fresh-cut pine. Cal had done most of the work himself, with Thomas Whitfield's guidance and the occasional help of neighbors who'd started showing up once word spread about what he was building. A home. A real home for 2 little girls who'd almost died under an oak tree. Cal thought about that tree sometimes, wondered if it was still standing, if the snow had buried it, if anyone ever stopped there anymore. He thought about riding back just to see it, just to remember. But then Emma would call him for supper, or Gracie would demand a story, and the past would fade into something distant and manageable, something that had happened to other people in another life. The sound of hoofbeats pulled him from his thoughts. A rider was coming up the road, moving fast. Cal's hand went to the gun at his hip. Old habits died hard, but as the rider drew closer, he recognized Thomas Whitfield's sturdy frame. Cal. Thomas reined up in front of the porch, his face flushed with excitement. You need to come to town, right now. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Something's right. Very right. Thomas grinned. The judge is here, Judge Morrison from Cheyenne. He's agreed to hear your petition. Cal's heart stopped. The adoption petition? The same. Clara's been working on this for weeks, pulled every string she could find. Thomas reached down and gripped Cal's shoulder. This is it, Cal. This is your chance to make it official. Cal had filed the papers 2 months ago at Clara's urging. Legal adoption. Making Emma and Gracie his daughters in the eyes of the law, not just in his heart. He hadn't let himself hope it would actually happen. When, 2 hours, get those girls dressed in their Sunday best and get to the courthouse. Cal was already moving before Thomas finished speaking. Emma knew something was happening the moment Cal burst through the door. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Get your sister. Put on your good dresses. Why, what's... Emma. Cal crouched down and took her hands. The judge is here. The one who can make the adoption official. He's going to hear our case today. Emma's eyes went wide. Today? Right now? Right now. So we need to move. But I thought you said it could take months. Clara made it happen. I don't know how, but she did. Cal squeezed her hands. This is it, Emma Ruth. This is our chance. Emma's face transformed. The careful, guarded expression she'd worn for so long cracked open, and underneath was something raw and hopeful and afraid. What if he says no? Then we keep fighting. But let's not think about no. Let's think about yes. Gracie appeared in the bedroom doorway, her hair tangled and her dress already rumpled, despite having been put on clean an hour ago. Are we going somewhere? We're going to see a judge, sweetheart. What's a judge? A man who makes important decisions. Cal scooped her up. And today he's going to decide if I can be your father. Your real legal father. Gracie's face scrunched in confusion. I thought you already were. Cal's throat tightened. I am Gracie Girl. But this makes it official. So nobody can ever take you away. Nobody can take us away. Nobody. Ever. Gracie wrapped her arms around his neck. Then let's go see the judge. The ride to town was the longest 30 minutes of Cal's life. Emma sat rigid on the wagon seat beside him, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles had gone white. Gracie dozed against Cal's shoulder, oblivious to the magnitude of what was about to happen. Cal, yeah? What if Reverend Thorne is there? Cal had thought about that. Thorne hadn't given up despite his defeat with the territorial officials. He'd continued his campaign of whispers and insinuations, trying to turn the town against Cal. Most people ignored him now, but he still had allies, still had influence. If he's there, we deal with it. How? By telling the truth. That's all we can do, Emma. Tell the truth and hope it's enough. And if it isn't... Cal looked down at her, this fierce, frightened girl who'd become his whole world. Then we keep fighting. We never stop fighting. You understand? Emma nodded slowly. I understand. Good. Now sit up straight. We're almost there. The courthouse was packed. Cal hadn't expected that. He'd thought it would be a quiet proceeding, just him and the girls and the judge. But half of Copper Hollow seemed to have crammed themselves into the small building. Thomas and Clara were there, of course. Dr. Marsh. Mrs. O'Brien looking uncomfortable in a dress that was clearly reserved for special occasions. And dozens of others people Cal had met over the past months, people who'd watched him work and struggle and refuse to give up. And there in the back corner stood Reverend Thorne. Their eyes met across the room. Thorne's face was a mask of cold contempt. Cal looked away first, but not out of weakness. He simply had more important things to focus on. All rise. The Honorable Judge William Morrison presiding. The room shuffled to its feet as the judge entered. Morrison was a big man, gray-bearded and stern, with eyes that seemed to take in everything and reveal nothing. He settled into his chair and surveyed the crowd. I understand we have a petition for adoption. Caleb James Brennan petitioning to adopt Emma Ruth Holloway and Grace Marie Holloway. He looked at Cal. You're Mr. Brennan. Yes, Your Honor. And these are the children in question. Yes, sir. Morrison studied Emma and Gracie, who stood on either side of Cal, holding his hands. Gracie waved. The judge's lips twitched. I've reviewed the paperwork, Mr. Brennan. I've also received testimony from several members of this community regarding your character and your care of these children. His eyes flicked to Thorne. I've received other testimony as well. Concerns about your fitness as a guardian. Cal felt Emma's grip tighten on his hand. Before I make my decision, I'd like to hear from the children themselves. Morrison leaned forward. Emma, can you step forward, please? Emma released Cal's hand and walked to the judge's bench. Her back was straight, her chin lifted. She looked far older than 8. Emma, I need to ask you some questions. I need you to answer honestly. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Tell me about Mr. Brennan. How did you come to be in his care? Emma took a breath. Then she began to speak. She told the story from the beginning. The blizzard, the oak tree, the long hours of waiting. The moment Cal appeared out of the storm, like an answer to a prayer none of them had known how to pray. She talked about the boarding house and Mrs. O'Brien's grudging kindness, about Gracie's fevers and Cal sitting by her bed for 3 days straight, about Reverend Thorne and his campaign to take them away. He wanted us to go to strangers. Emma said, her voice steady. People who didn't know us didn't love us. He said it would be better for us. But he was wrong. How do you know he was wrong? Because Cal is the only person who ever kept his promise to us. Emma's voice cracked just slightly. Our father promised to come back, and he didn't. Our mother promised to always be there, and she died. Everyone we ever trusted let us down, except Cal. He said he wouldn't leave, and he didn't. He said he'd take care of us, and he did. He said we'd have a home, and we do. She turned and looked at Cal, tears streaming down her face. He's our family now. The only family we have. Please don't take that away from us. The courtroom was silent. Cal saw Mrs. O'Brien dabbing her eyes. Clara was openly weeping. Even Thomas looked moved. Judge Morrison cleared his throat. Thank you, Emma. That was very helpful. He looked at Gracie. Young lady, would you like to say anything? Gracie stepped forward, clutching her ragdoll Buttercup against her chest. I want Cal to be my daddy, she said simply. He tells good stories, and he makes me feel safe, and he never yells at me even when I spill things. She paused, considering. Also, he said we can get a dog. Can we still get a dog if you say yes? The courtroom erupted in laughter. Even Morrison smiled. I believe dog acquisition is outside my jurisdiction, young lady, but I'll take it under advisement. Gracie nodded solemnly. Okay, but can Cal be our daddy? Please. Morrison looked at Cal. Mr. Brennan, do you have anything to add? Cal stepped forward, his heart pounding. Your Honor, I'm not a rich man. I'm not an educated man. I came to this town with nothing but a horse and $40 and no idea what I was doing. He paused. But I found these girls when they were dying. I made them a promise, and I aim to keep that promise for the rest of my life. Why, they're not your blood, not your responsibility. Because somebody has to be responsible for them. Because their father trusted that someone good would come along, and I was the one who came. Cal's voice roughened. Because I love them. More than I ever thought I could love anything. They're my family, Your Honor. Maybe not by blood, but by choice. And choice matters just as much. Morrison was silent for a long moment. Reverend Thorne. His voice cut across the room. You've filed objections to this adoption. Would you like to state them for the record? Thorne stepped forward, his face composed. Your Honor, my concerns are well documented. Mr. Brennan is a man of no fixed history, no verifiable background, no standing in the community prior to his arrival here. He claims to have found these children by chance, but we have only his word for what happened. For all we know, what Reverend Thorne hesitated. I'm simply saying that the children's welfare must be paramount, and a proper Christian family. Like the Whitfields. Yes, the Whitfields are established members of this community, people of faith and means. The Whitfields are also present in this courtroom, Reverend, and according to the testimony I've received, they support this adoption." Thorne's face reddened. "They've been influenced by what? By witnessing Mr. Brennan's devotion to these children, by seeing him work himself to exhaustion to provide for them." Morrison's voice hardened. "Reverend, I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've seen good people and bad ones, fit parents and unfit ones. And I've learned that the trappings of respectability don't always indicate the substance of character." He stood, his robes rustling. "I've heard the testimony. I've reviewed the evidence. I've seen the love in this courtroom, and I've seen the fear. And my decision is this." Cal stopped breathing. "The petition for adoption is granted." The courtroom exploded. Cal heard cheering applause, people shouting his name, but none of it registered. All he could see was Emma and Gracie running toward him, their faces bright with joy, their arms outstretched. He caught them both and held on tight, his own tears mixing with theirs. "You're ours now," Emma sobbed against his chest. "Really ours, forever." "Forever," Cal agreed, his voice breaking. "Forever and always." Gracie pulled back to look at him, her blue eyes shining. "Does this mean I can call you Daddy?" Cal laughed through his tears. "You can call me whatever you want, Gracie girl." "Daddy?" she said, testing the word. "Daddy, I like it." "Me too, sweetheart, me too." The celebration at the boarding house lasted well into the evening. Mrs. O'Brien had prepared a feast despite her protestations that she wasn't one for parties. Thomas and Clara brought cider and a cake that Clara had baked herself. Dr. Marsh contributed a bottle of whiskey that he claimed was for medicinal purposes. Even people Cal barely knew stopped by to offer congratulations. Through it all, Cal kept the girls close. They were his daughters now, legally, officially, permanently. Nobody could take them away. As the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, Clara pulled Cal aside. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I've been keeping until the right moment." "What is it?" Clara's eyes were bright with barely contained emotion. "A letter came last week. From Omaha. From the hospital where Samuel Holloway died." Cal's breath caught. "What?" "They found it among his belongings after he passed. He'd written it weeks before, but he was too sick to send it. The hospital only just got around to going through his things." She pressed an envelope into Cal's hands. "It's addressed to whoever found his daughters. I think that means it's addressed to you." Cal stared at the envelope. Samuel Holloway's handwriting thin and shaky, spelling out words he'd written while dying. "Thank you, Clara. Read it when you're ready. And Cal." She touched his arm gently. "Whatever it says, remember, you've already done everything that letter could ask for, and more." She left and Cal stood alone in the hallway, holding a dead man's final words. He waited until the house was quiet and the girls were asleep. Then he sat in his chair by the fire and opened the letter. "To whoever finds my daughters. If you're reading this, then you stopped. You saw 2 little girls under a tree and you didn't ride past. For that I owe you a debt I can never repay. My name is Samuel Holloway. I was a soldier, a husband, a father. I was also a coward and a failure. I left my daughters because I was dying, and I couldn't watch them suffer. I told myself it was an act of love. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I'll face that judgment soon enough. I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're rich or poor, young or old, kind or cruel, but you stopped. And that tells me something about your character that all the fine words in the world couldn't convey. My daughters are strong, Emma especially. She's been carrying burdens no child should carry since her mother died. She won't trust easily, she's been hurt too many times. But if you can earn her trust, she'll give you everything she has. She'll fight for you until her last breath. That's who she is. Gracie is softer. She believes in magic and angels and the goodness of strangers. The world hasn't beaten that out of her yet. Please don't let it. Please let her keep believing even when it seems foolish. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I gave up that right when I walked away. But I'm asking anyway. Love them. Protect them. Be the father I couldn't be. And when they're old enough to understand, tell them this: their father loved them more than life itself. He loved them so much that he let them go, hoping someone better would find them. I was wrong about so many things in my life. But I was right about one thing. Someone good did come along. Thank you. Samuel Holloway. Cal read the letter 3 times. Then he folded it carefully and held it against his chest. I've got them, Samuel, he whispered into the darkness. I've got them, and I'm never letting go. A sound made him turn. Emma stood in the doorway, her nightgown white in the firelight. I couldn't sleep, she said. I heard you talking. Come here. She crossed the room and climbed into his lap, curling against him like she'd done it 1,000 times. What's that paper? A letter from your father. Emma went still. Papa? He wrote it before he died. He wanted whoever found you to know. Cal's voice broke. He wanted you to know he loved you. Can I read it? Someday, when you're ready. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she said softly, I used to hate him, for leaving us, for walking away. I know. But I don't hate him anymore. I feel sorry for him. She looked up at Cal. He missed so much. He missed you teaching me to ride. He missed Gracie learning her letters. He missed the house and the garden and everything. He did. Do you think he knows somehow that we're okay? Cal thought about the letter, about a dying man's desperate hope, about all the ways that hope had been answered. Yeah, Emma Ruth, I think he knows. She nestled closer, her breathing slowing. I love you, Daddy. It was the first time she'd called him that. The word hit Cal like a physical blow, cracking open something in his chest that had been locked away for years. I love you too, baby girl, more than you'll ever know. They sat together until the fire burned low, father and daughter, 2 people who'd found each other against all odds. The next morning, Cal took the girls out to the oak tree. They rode for hours through the melting snow, following the road Cal had traveled that fateful night. Emma recognized the route, her face growing pale and quiet as they drew closer. Why are we going back? Gracie asked. Because some things need to be remembered, Cal said. So we don't forget how far we've come. The tree was smaller than he remembered, just an oak, ancient and gnarled, standing sentinel beside an empty road. The snow had melted around its roots, revealing dead grass and frozen earth. Cal dismounted and helped the girls down. This is where I found you. Emma walked toward the tree slowly, her hand trailing along the rough bark. I remember. It was so cold. I thought we were going to die here. But you didn't. Because you came. She turned to look at him. You came, and everything changed. Gracie was already exploring her fear of the place, overwritten by curiosity. Look. Someone left flowers. Cal walked over. At the base of the tree, half buried in snow, was a small bundle of dried wildflowers. No note, no explanation. Just flowers left by someone who'd heard the story and wanted to mark the spot. People know about this place, Emma said quietly. They know what happened here. Seems like they do. Do you think they'll keep coming? Keep leaving flowers? Maybe. Does that bother you? Emma thought about it. No, I think it's nice that people remember, that they care about what happened to 2 little girls under a tree. Cal put his arms around both girls, pulling them close. This is where our story started, he said. But it's not where it ends. It's just a tree, Emma, just a place. What matters is what comes after. What comes after? Everything. The house, the garden Gracie wants, the dog we're going to get. He kissed the top of her head. All the years we're going to have together, all the memories we're going to make. That's what comes after. Gracie tugged on his coat. Can we go home now? I'm cold. Yeah, Gracie girl, let's go home. They mounted up and rode away, leaving the oak tree behind them. Emma looked back once, then turned forward, her face set toward the future. The road stretched out before them, long and winding, full of unknowns. But they weren't afraid. They had each other, and that was enough. 5 years later, on a summer evening, Emma sat on the porch of the house that had become home and watched her father teach Gracie to ride. At 13, Emma had grown into herself. The guardedness was still there, but softened by years of stability and love. She was top of her class at the schoolhouse, already talking about becoming a teacher herself someday. Clara Whitfield had taken her under her wing, teaching her things that Cal couldn't: how to be a woman in a world that didn't always make that easy. Gracie at 10 was a whirlwind of blonde curls and boundless energy. She'd gotten her dog a scruffy mutt named Biscuit, who followed her everywhere, and her garden, and the chickens, and a dozen other things she'd demanded over the years. Cal had never learned to say no to her. As for Cal himself, he'd changed too. The lean, hungry drifter who'd arrived in Copper Hollow with nothing but a horse and a prayer was gone. In his place was a man with roots, responsibilities, a reputation as one of the hardest workers in the county, and 2 daughters who loved him more than life itself. Emma. She looked up. Gracie was waving from the corral. Her face split in a grin. Emma, I did it. I rode all the way around without holding on. That's wonderful, Gracie. Cal caught Emma's eye and smiled. That smile still did something to her even after all these years. It was the smile of a man who'd found his place in the world, who'd built something worth having. Later that night, after supper and stories and Gracie's endless questions about everything under the sun, Emma found her father on the porch watching the stars. Can't sleep, she asked, settling into the chair beside him. Just thinking. About what? About how different things could have been. If I'd ridden a different road that night. If I'd gotten there an hour later, or not at all. He shook his head. Sometimes it still amazes me, how close we came to missing each other completely. But we didn't. No, we didn't. Emma reached over and took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and familiar. I used to wonder why Papa left us, she said quietly. I used to lie awake at night trying to understand. How could someone who loved us just walk away? Did you ever figure it out? I think so. I think he was trying to save us the only way he knew how. By letting us go. She paused. He was wrong in some ways. He gave up too soon. But he was right about one thing. What's that? Someone good did come along. Emma squeezed his hand. The best someone I could have hoped for. Cal's throat tightened. Emma. I know I don't say it enough. I know I'm not good at the soft stuff. But I need you to know. She turned to face him. You saved my life, Cal. Not just that night under the tree, but every day since. You taught me that not everyone leaves. That some people stay even when it's hard. That family isn't just blood, it's choice. You taught me things too, Emma Ruth. Like what? Like what it means to love something more than yourself. Like what it means to fight for someone who can't fight for themselves. He smiled. Like what it means to be a father. They sat together in the darkness, father and daughter, 2 people who'd found each other against all odds and built a life from the wreckage of what they'd lost. And when Gracie's voice called from inside, demanding to know if they were coming to bed or staying up all night like owls, they laughed and went in together. Because that's what family does. They stay. They fight. They love. Always and forever. And in a small house on the Wyoming prairie, where a drifter had become a father and 2 abandoned girls had found a home, the Brennan family slept peacefully. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead in their ancient dance. The wind whispered through the grass, and somewhere far away, an old oak tree stood sentinel by an empty road, marking the spot where 3 lives had intersected and everything had changed. But inside the house, there was only warmth, only love. Only the certain knowledge that no matter what tomorrow brought, they would face it together. Because Cal Brennan had made a promise under that tree. and Cal Brennan always kept his promises.